Hi, my name is Trovine Monteiro. I manage the built environment team for Greater Cambridge Shared Planning. We are a shared planning service for Cambridge City Council and South Cambridgeshire District. Just trying to figure out how do you next it. Okay. So I am an urban designer, master planner, 20 years experience of delivering growth and quality. Leading an award-winning team of 8 to 12 urban designers and a part of a 30-strong built natural environment team. Recently, I've completed my master's in business administration, and I'm very interested in commercialization of public services. We are interested in our team not just in delivering high-quality advice, but we are also interested in delivering high-quality outcomes. And that includes having robust systems and processes. And what we specialize in is delivering design codes. Coding has been talked about. It's the most talked about subject in the last few years. And at this juncture, there is a need to take stock as to what we mean by coding and really assess if coding is the right tool for us to manage quality. What should its focus be? There is an interesting document that's on screen, New Neighborhoods in Cambridge, which is published by Cambridge Architectural Research and funded by MHCLG, which draws up some lessons that we have learned over the last 20 years or so. Just to give you an idea of the context of Cambridge, the image on the right, you have the growth. So we are looking at about 30,000 homes to be delivered in the next 20, 30 years, primarily as extensions and new settlements. So these are some of the developments that we have built in Cambridge. So this is the Great Knighton, and many of you might have come over here to have a look. We also have the Eddington, this is the Trumpeton Meadows development, and then we've got North Stowe. We are also delivering Eddington, Marley, Waterbeach, and North Stowe. Based on what we have learned, I have summed these up into 10 principles that we can use for coding. And I'll put these on. I will talk about the next steps of design coding from our perspective, in where we go next from here, and also talk about a bit about our experience on area coding as it's a hot topic currently. The first principle that we talk about is that design coding doesn't exist in isolation, and it is part of a robust development process. Right from your spatial strategy and locating developments in the right place, right through the outline planning process, conditions, the design code itself, the reserve matters application, the infrastructure application, monitoring, and if that goes wrong, enforcement. We have to think about the standards and the vision right at the start. And so there isn't a difference in view between the developer and the local authority and the community in terms of what is expected to be created. And if that needs clarification, then some kind of a engagement process should be commissioned to get that clarity. Principle 3, we need to establish key fixes and flexibilities and the level of prescription. And this really depends on the type of developer, the type of delivery model. But it's very critical to understand what the issues are when it comes to the fixes, the priorities, what's an absolute versus the flexibility. And it also depends on the skills of the team that is being involved in it, where sometimes you want to allow for more flexibility because of a talented team that is sitting behind the application. Engagement with stakeholders. It's really important that the engagement process is a genuine one, and it is one that seeks to develop consensus versus choosing what is popular. And it develops on the building blocks of place as a measure of quality. There is significant talk about beauty, and there are two camps that I can see kind of developing on that. The one that talks about it as style, and the other one, that is more along placemaking and the building blocks, and it's the latter that really starts to set out the quality of place. Principle 5, coordinate and understand the implications of delivery on the physical, social, and economic infrastructure. Here, many times, once you do the visioning work, a lot of time is spent delivering the Section 106 obligations. And it's really critical as designers that we engage in that to understand the timing, the delivery, the skills that are required to deliver it, and who is going to do that, and the cost of it as well. It's really important to think about the infrastructure as they come into sequence. And many times, there is a lack of coordination between the various consultancies that are involved on those various elements. Creation of a place from day one. That's principle 6. It's really critical. There are big sites that feel like construction sites, even after 4 or 5 years of it being built. And the phasing of and the timing of how things happen must be really taken care of to ensure that the residents kind of moving in feel that it is their place and it's complete. And you can see the Eddington scheme on the top, and you can see the Northstowe scheme in the bottom, where the landscape infrastructure and the public space infrastructure isn't there. Take account of adoption requirements and management strategies at the start. Many times, really good visions are really watered down by the detailed thought that's not given to because of adoption and management. And later down the stage, because of adoption regimes, things cannot be constructed as per the vision because of the infrastructure that's not provided, because of the cost that's not thought through, because the management of green spaces might be really costly, and you can't pass that on to the residents. All of these things need to be really thought through at an early stage. It also gives you flexibility to think about the widths of streets. It's not just about listening to what the adoption requirements are, but it's also sometimes challenging those to create the kind of spaces and the enclosure of these good public spaces, good enclosures that we need across streets. We need to think about the skills that are involved, and the skills on both sides, the local government, the developers' side, to have a robust engagement and collaboration towards the designs. And one needs to be ready to respond to issues that emerge throughout the application. The use of design review panels is highly recommended and has been tremendously useful based on our experience. Governance, we need to set a good governance arrangement that seeks to always monitor and review the code once it's developed. And if there are changes that are required, the right measures should be taken. Decision making should be at the right level, and we shouldn't make codes too prescriptive that are too difficult later on to change. Compliance should be ensured when you get reserve matters applications through. And then if things are not done well on site, I think the last stage is about enforcement. But the final point around the principles about having good leadership, to have developed trust, and to have a legacy. And this comes down to having continuity and having consistency across both teams. So, we've talked about the 10 principles, but these 10 principles by themselves don't deliver design quality. So what's next? We need to think about beyond these 10 principles, particularly in the context of delivering quality at pace and at scale. The standard volume house building model isn't really delivering the quality of places that we want. And there are some legacy conscious developers who are, like you can see on screen on the left, are developing really good designs, but they are not selling as fast as the volume house builders do in terms of their market absorption rate and in terms of the speed at which they can build. And there's a real issue there if we have to really encourage creating quality and creating at pace. We've been always told that once a developer goes above a certain level in terms of the numbers of homes, then we can expect some standardization to come into play. And that kind of creates a much more homogeneous mix. And we have tried and tested this approach with Wing on the top right to see whether actually using a similar model, we can try and change the brick, the type of designs, the height of buildings, but keeping the standard house type the same. This can work to only a certain extent. And there is much more thinking that we need to do on new settlements and urban extensions of large scale, and think around how smaller sites can come forward, which are much more differentiation, authenticity, identity, and character. It begs the next question. So are we building the houses that residents want? When we engage on new settlements, who are these people that we're engaging with? The bedrooms numbers are generally used when you buy properties as the measure of value. And this is one of the criteria that tries to define your housing type in terms of the number of bedrooms and the number of people. Is this really the type of buildings people want to see? We have too many bedrooms, but too little living spaces, too little gardens, and less amenity. And is there a recalibration and thinking of what does a good house or a good home look like for different people in the spectrum, from children, teenagers, students, youth, young families, mature families, old, and end-of-life care. The schemes that we've seen just before was a good example, of how communal space can be curated and delivered and managed once you got the person who's actually using it into the mix that can define the brief for that space. And how can we build that flexibility in large-scale master planning? How does new patterns of living change the type of places we are building for the future? Low car ownership, active travel, zero carbon, alternative energy vehicles will mean different ways in which we need to design. And the buildings that we're building today will need to adapt to those kind of measures. And hence, we are still, I think, delivering based on the past rather than thinking about what the future needs are. Very much led by the developer looking at past data, especially volume house builders, looking at past data to identify what the next 20 years look. Is that right?
Trovine, sorry, if you could begin to sum up.
Thank you. I will quickly do this slide and then this one more slide. Thank you very much. So beyond these 10 principles, the next step from learning what we need from place is to actually curate for diversity. And this is not just about the physical diversity of places and how they operate in a physical environment, but it actually means about thinking. It also is about thinking about the conditions that we need to do to create these spaces, the roles of centers, and to think about the flexibility of the end state of master planning. Do we really need to think about how do we cater for the entire life cycle and allow for social, economic, and physical change? And then finally, I just wanted to reflect on the area design code that we did and created these, based on 5 principles. Nature was very much talked about, walking and cycling, public spaces, character, and sustainability. And it doesn't need to cover all 10 characteristics of place. It is really down to the principles rather than the detail that we can focus on. And it's really think about whether area design codes actually will be a code or more a strategy or guidance. Finally, to say, actually, we need to code for something. If there is something that's better that comes out, the code needs to allow for that. And the marmalade lane is a good example of it.